Now, there's little doubt the government's new industrial relations laws are difficult to interpret for many businesses and for workers. One of the most difficult aspects is when is a person a worker for a company and when are they not? Now, if you work for an agency, say, are you a worker entitled to superannuation and holiday pay or not? What if you use a website that lines the work up for you? Well, from last year, the Industrial Relations Minister, Tony Burke, clouded the issue a little by making a comparison of two companies, Airtasker and Mable. Now, Airtasker is a website that allows freelancers to bid for work, chores around the home, whatever, with people or companies that want something done. So who does that freelancer work for? Themselves? For Airtasker, or for the person they're actually doing the work for? Then there's Mable. It's a site that does something similar to Airtasker. It lines up work for people looking for disability or aged care support with local independent support workers. Again, who does that person work for? So here is the Industrial Relations Minister last year at the National Press Club just trying to explain it.
So that's why we said, OK, instead of should the test be who sets the price, the test should be, what do the workers look like? And if the worker is, I gave those three examples, all dealing with the word low. Low bargaining power, low control, low pay. If you look at those features, that tells you who's going to be employee-like. And once you look at it that way, businesses like Mable come in, businesses like Airtasker fall out.
So according to the Minister, Mable had employees, but Airtasker did not, but not for long. Just 9 days later, when the legislation was released, it was determined any person who contracts for work, say using Airtasker or similar sites, may indeed be an employee. Well, now the legislation is firmly in place. So how has this played out? And what happens as the first disputes hit the Fair Work Commission? Well, let's go to the Chief Executive of Airtasker, Tim Fong, who is with me here in the program. This is such a good subject because it goes to that notion of control and who is an employee, who is not. As I say, the minister sort of had to change his view a couple of days later when the legislation landed. Right now, what happens if I use your site to find somebody to do some work for me? Who is the employer, who is the employee?
So I think one of the best things about Airtasker is, taskers and Airtasker are both fairly aligned in the view that taskers are their own boss. Airtaskers are not their employer, and so it's very much the taskers that are determining the prices of the work that they're doing, the taskers determining the scope of the work that they're going to do. And so in relation to these new laws that are out, we haven't heard anything from taskers, and it hasn't really affected our business too much.
OK, so nobody at this stage has gone to the Fair Work Commission to say, hey, I think I work for Airtasker because I'm getting work through that site. To me, you seem to be the broker in the middle, as distinct from the employer. But by the same token, the work is being gained through you. So this is where this legislation becomes just a bit cloudy.
That's right. I think that, in the case of Airtasker, it's pretty, I'd be really, really surprised if any of our taskers were to go to the Fair Work, Commission or to raise the notion that they might otherwise consider Airtasker to be their boss. I don't think that that's even on the card.
Mind you, if I'm writing code for you, if I'm working in your marketing department, if I'm wearing the Airtasker shirt as you are, I'm kind of thinking, well, actually, I'll work for Airtasker. If I'm actually using your site as somebody who's trying to gain work or somebody who's trying to obtain some work to be done, I'm going, well, you're kind of not got anything to do with this. We're just using you as a platform.
That's exactly right. I mean, if you look at the way our product is built, there's definitely direction that is happening there. We're saying this is how this feature needs to work. Please build it. It needs to look like this. And, of course, there's very much direction. When it comes to taskers doing work, that's very much an open forum where a customer will simply say, hey, I'm needing to get this problem solved. And our taskers can come in and in any way, shape or form say, I'll get it done for this amount of money. And so I think that's a completely different type of relationship.
OK, so from your point of view, therefore, the changes to the industrial relations system, which covers casuals, does it really work in a real-time application as we sit here today?
I think that the laws that have come out are actually not too bad in the sense that they actually have abstracted away from the idea of calling out names. You mentioned Mable, you mentioned Airtasker, and I think it's right that the law doesn't call out, certain kinds of brands, because then it would never scale, it'd never be able to keep up with all of the change that's occurring. And so I think they have done the right thing in saying it's about the level of control and bargaining power of the taskers, and if you can demonstrate that those things are low, then the Fair Work Commission can help you out, but you have to demonstrate that first. And I think that's the right principle.
Okay, because yours is the ultimate in free marketeering, because I can actually choose to work for somebody at that price or choose not to work for somebody at that price. I name my own price. Now, the question is, the relationship as an employee-employer technically comes from the tasker out to the person who is contracting them, not with you. That's what I would see, at least anyway.
I think that's exactly right. We are pretty much the epitome of independent contracting. Airtasker actually has very little influence between the taskers and the customers and what they want to agree. And we think that empowerment is amazing. One of the things that was so amazing is, during the labour shortage of 2020 and 2021, during that COVID period, we saw the earnings from taskers go up at double-digit percentages per year. Now, if you think about how employment works, as those labour shortages happened, there was very little growth in wages. But certainly on the Airtasker platform, the fact that people were able to be their own boss, set their own wage, meant that those benefits flowed directly through to the workers. And I think that was a great result.
And there's one other aspect of this. Given the fact that we know it's almost 1 in 9 Australian workers these days has got more than one job, and indeed a lot of people, because of cost of living pressures, are choosing to do more than one chore. They can come to you when they need the extra cash. They can not come to you when they don't need the cash. So it's entirely up to them as to how much they want to work and potentially how much they want to earn.
I think it's one of the most important things in the economy is to have fluidity of where the labour and the resources and people put their attention, where it can go to. You're seeing right now, things move so quickly, whether it's like a new technology like AI or it's a new social media that everyone wants to get on and master. You want the labour to be really, really flexible so it can move quickly. You don't want these rigid structures where we say you're stuck in this job at this pay, at this level in a long-term sense. You want it to be able to move quickly. And so I think it's a great thing. It's been a great way to address the cost of living crisis and the inflation crisis.
Okay, but then we go through the system itself, because it goes all the way up to labour hire companies, where labour hire companies might say, right, there's 200 of you who are going to that mining site and we're going to employ you and contract you to that mining site. That almost becomes a slightly different sort of, if you like, a dynamic as an employer and an employee as compared with what you're doing.
That's right. I think there is levels of how much influence and control a platform and an employer at some extreme can have on the workers. And that's the bit where it does get a little bit tricky, because you go all the way from sort of, a classifieds website, like in, classifieds in the newspaper where you can say tradie wanted, all the way through to, something like Airtasker, and then maybe to Mable and Uber and eventually an employer. And it's tricky as to where you draw the line and what sort of controls we should have there. I think it's easy for Airtasker because we're so far towards the independent contract. It's kind of a no-brainer, but it is a tricky middle ground, I think.
I'll tell you, Tim Fung, always great to chat to you about these things, and many thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Ross.